8 a.m. California time. We have also people joining from Senegal, I see. Yeah, all over the world. Yeah, so why don't we start it? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April edition of tinyML Trailblazer series. So this is the place where you're going to meet people who really drive this community forward, people who develop new technologies, people who promote tinyML, people who innovate and implement tinyML technologies and products into our lives. My name is Evgeny Gusev. I'm from Qualcomm. I'm going to be doing the introduction today. And our special guest today is Eric Pan. Eric is the founder and the CEO of Seed Studio. And Eric is actually joining us from China, from Shenzhen, where there is like 11 p.m. Local time there. And we are very fortunate to have Eric here today. Before we start, let me acknowledge tinyML sponsors and strategic partners. So this list of great companies is growing every week. Today it's AON Devices, ARM, DeepLight, HMPulse, EMSA, FotoHub, Greenwaves Technologies, Grovity, HOTG, Imagimob, Itemis, Clickertech, Latent AI, Maxim Integrated, which is a part of Knowledge Devices now, Micro AI, NXP, Prophecy, Qualcomm, Kixa, Reality AI, Renaissance, Rixon, SAP, Seed, SenseML, Sony, ST, Microelectronics, Stream Analyze, SynSense, and Syntient. And of these companies, two companies, Prophecy and Rixon Technology, they got awarded Best Product and Best Innovation Award at the tinyML Summit last week, just for your information, if you missed this announcement. So last week was really a great week for the global tinyML community. We had our flagship event, tinyML Summit. It was an in-person event, first after the pandemic. The previous one was 2 years ago. And it was a great event with 350 people representing more than 150 companies, also from all over the world. People came from Europe, from Africa, from the Americas, from Australia, from Asia. So it was a great event, a lot of engagement, a lot of update, a lot of progress on tinyML. So you can view presentations. They're already posted on tinyml.org. You can go there and check out presentations, PDF files there. And videos of all presentations will be available on YouTube, tinyML YouTube channel. It's YouTube/tinyML, so go and check it out there. So they will be posted there probably like within the next 2-3 weeks or so. And this also applies to the tinyML Research Symposium. It was a great event with a lot of really fundamental advancements in this space. Our communities keep growing. So we have close to 9,000 people on meetups. It's 45 groups in 35 countries. And again, really a very vibrant community. And LinkedIn community is also growing. So I think we have close also to 9,000 people there, members and followers. And you can join these communities. There are all kinds of announcements and posts and discussions and so on. As I said earlier, this presentation will be available on YouTube. You can subscribe to this channel now for the updates and notifications if you're interested in. And again, this channel has tons of information, like 363 videos, 6.5, 6.4 subscribers. It's a great place to browse and get the latest information on tinyML. And at this point, it is a great pleasure to introduce the host of the Trailblazer series. It's Dr. Chris Rowen. Chris is very well known in the tinyML community and also more broadly in the Silicon Valley technology and entrepreneur community. He's done a lot of successful product developments in his professional life. Right now, he is a vice president of products and engineering at Cisco, working for WebEx applications, specifically in the machine learning space. And before that, Chris co-founded and he was the CEO of Bubble Labs. And this company, this tinyML company, was successfully acquired by Cisco in 2020. Chris is also well known as for his work at Cadence as CEO. And before that, he co-founded Tensilica, also very well-known microprocessor IP company. And Chris has received many awards, and he has a long list of great accomplishments. And his background is EE from Stanford. He received his PhD from Stanford, and also a bachelor degree in physics from Harvard. So again, it is a pleasure to have Chris here. And Chris, the stage is yours at this point.
Thank you very much. It's really a lot of fun to run this series and talk to all these really remarkable people about their leadership, their ideas, their entrepreneurial efforts around tinyML. And Eric Pan is a perfect example of that community. He's the founder of Seed Studio and has been really at the center of a whole AI and embedded machine learning maker community, a community of people who are discovering not only the technology, but thousands of different kinds of applications for it. And he's really working to integrate key elements of the core technology and the supply chain resources in order to be able to create a really open platform that can influence how a lot of machine learning gets done. So the Seed Studio community has empowered already millions of developers in over 200 countries to turn ideas into prototypes and solutions. So please welcome Eric. So it's great to have you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I think it would be good to start our conversation just with a little bit of your story. How did you come to start Seed Studio, and what is the big idea of Seed Studio?
Thanks, Chris. So it's quite a long time. It's starting from 2008, and it's not starting from something big. It's just a very trivial idea that I was a maker, I was an engineer, trained as EE as well, trying to make fun stuff, trying to do embedded engineering, Singapore computers. But when I was a university student back in 2002 or 2003, it was difficult to get all the parts. And all the projects died just when it's finished. So I have been struggling for several years trying to work for big companies like Intel, also trying to create some independent business. After that, it has been quite difficult. Then I look back to myself, how about I just make some help to the previous me, which means all the engineers all over the world can use open source hardware to build their products easier, and also to have the capability to scale their prototypes all the way into solutions. So in 2008, in Shenzhen, we started the company called Seed Studio. The name is well after its intention. It's like a spread for possibilities to start from small ideas and grow into like maybe bigger trays, maybe just small grass, no problem. So that's where everything. It's a fantastic, because previously I was in Chengdu, I was in Beijing, and when I go to Shenzhen for the first time, I just stayed because we feel that that's a cluster of resources. There's so many engineers, at least I think the majority of the electronic engineers in China has been has been moved to Shenzhen. And that was just right before the window that Shenzhen becomes popular. After that, many people come, they witnessed the excitement of Shenzhen. It's not a like Silicon Valley for software, but it has been like very open and has all kinds of resources. So simply put, from 2008, we started with open source hardware modules. We keep providing all kinds of sensors, microcontrollers. Like we dare not to talk about machine learning by that time, but we keep exploring those possibilities of embedded system. Not for engineers with Stanford background, but for whoever wants to repurpose their things around them, they have a mean to get them talking by Arduino, by Raspberry Pi. I think that's the smooth journey of the first 10 years. We just rode with the maker movement, and we open the innovation capabilities that we see all the possibilities spreading out, not only in China, in the States, but all over the world. And another push for us is from like online business. So people can just buy one piece from us, and they can just order customized PCB, PCBA from the very beginning. So that's the beginning of the small stories.
And how did you get more and more involved in machine learning along the way? How did that kind of join the stream of fundamental technologies influencing what people were trying to make in these small embedded systems?
I think the story starts very long time ago, like in 2002, when I was doing the SBC, like there were Windows C, they even have speech recognitions in it, simple ones, no TensorFlow, nothing fancy, and but that's the like very early stage, and people start to do things on Raspberry Pi. I think from 2010 and 11, and then it's AlphaGo. The AI is popping out and it's becoming very jammed. We're exploring possibilities onto embedded systems. And that's where we look back, okay, with a bigger board, with a Raspberry Pi, be a suitable platform to do that. Then we encountered the tinyML. I think it's not too many years for us to really fully invest in it. And I think it's starting from 2 or 3 years ago. Before that was like IFTTT. You do a very simple like logic on your on your controllers. But it's only after the book from Peter Warden that tinyML is possible. Okay, I think the technology has been there for a while, but now people has the confidence to use that. People don't see the possibility is so near their reach. So that's where we look into that and found, okay, this is excitement that we have been missed for many years. I feel like the first time is Arduino. It's not a great deep technology, but it has been empowering so many people because it lowers barrier of cost, lowers barrier of the threshold that everybody can participate. So we are fantastic about the machine learning, microcontrollers. And I become the evangelist inside of the company first. Not many people understand that, but I keep pushing. And we made it the first wire terminal running machine learning. We make more tutorials. We see people make wonderful stuff, like the machine nodes from Benjamin. And we see people use it for a variety of things, even from children. I think the pace is there, And it's very much reminds me of the beginning of Arduino. I think a lot more people deserve to start understand and use that for their real programs.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's really interesting to see how this has organically grown and how ideas like machine learning have combined with ideas like the maker community to sort of create something that wouldn't have been possible without it. So what's the business model of Seed Studio? What do you make money on? What do you rely on partners for? What is really part of how the open source spirit permeates that community? But what do you do? What do you not do? What do you do for free? What do you do for money?
You're asking a very difficult question that we tried to answer for 14 years. So first, yes, we're an organic company. From the first 3 months, we make money and we survived until today. I think the basis of our business model is we make open source hardware modules. So we provide people with basic sensors, microcontrollers to simplify their process of making hardware. And now we are moving onwards. So we make more devices. So people can just build the software, they just feed the data through a very simple API and easy to deploy. I think our business model can simplify to extreme is we sell hardware. But we are beyond that. We open all the process we can from the hardware manufacturing to software to solutions. So a lot of people work with us not as a customer, but as a partner. Like many people, they can just, they have an idea, they have a prototype, they just authorize us. And because they are basing our open source hardware modules, it's very easy for us to manage their supply chain. So we help them to run their hardware all the way from engineering, manufacturing to distributions. We served quite many startups or like indie companies. They just have the design, the focus on marketing, but we help them to do the rest of the work. So that has been like playing a critical role in seed growth. We have been supporting multiple wonderful projects like Bigger Board, like Hyper, like Explorer, Razorfly. So they go from a very maker stylish project all the way into a startup that can have millions of dollars of income every year. Some of will beyond that. So simply put, City has been selling hardware, but we don't do it alone. We work with the community to co-create, to co-invent the devices and solutions.
Right. It sounds like a really cool combination of a community of interaction where everyone's teaching one another, combined with sale of hardware, combined with prototyping services, so that people can get, all the way to highly customized hardware into production without having to understand all of the details of what really goes on when you design and prototype and and assemble a board in modern technology. So along the way, you must have had some twists and turns, some places where things you tried as technologies or business models or market initiatives didn't work, and you had to go through the painful, eye-opening process of learning from it and trying a new direction. Can you tell one story about how you hit roadblocks and had to go in a new direction? How you respond to problems is often much more revealing than just ordinary successes. So I'm really interested if you can share a little bit on painful challenges.
I think the lucky part for us is that we don't have too many standard painful ones, but one major one. Okay. And gladly we survived. So, you know, for the first 10 years for the studio from 2008, 2018, it was quite smooth. Like I said, we were just making the open source hardware and grow with the maker community. And just after 2016, and we start to realize that the community is becoming more saturated. The explosion has been slowing down. So we already see the makerspace, the fab labs all over the planet or in every country. But what's next? So a lot of companies in this ecosystem start to panic, including ourselves. We want to find out the next frontier for the growth. We see so many possibilities, but we are wondering what is productivity? How can we really resolve problems out of that? So we start to, break out the circle. We start to explore beyond the maker ecosystem we are familiar with. So we break our team into several groups, trying to find the next plateau. And we try the education, we look at IoT, even instruments. There are so many things that has been like it's a dilemma. If you stay there, you might be like dried out or dying in hunger. But if you move onwards, you might be like without enough water or food, you might die on the road. So I like the topic for today. It's the trailblazer. So I think we started by following the maker movement. We follow the path, but now it's time for us for the studio to really find a new way. That's where we encountered machine learning. We encountered tinyML. So it's a very painful story. We see like the investors, they don't like the loss of focus, but ourselves in the puzzle. I think a lot of companies enjoying the growth will meet many of them, but for us, the first 10 years was too smooth, was too organic, that we don't even have a KPI. We don't care about revenue. It's just keep growing. We keep like juggling with all the opportunities. But suddenly one day, we feel that the whole thing will be just going down. We lose all the energies. So I think that's the killer part. And the only way we can survive on that is just have little faith and move on. And trying to think, trying to study, trying to learn from each other, look back into history and trying to forecast to grasp the future. But I think the basis has been made us strong is the maker ecosystem, which meaning the developers who are interested in hardware of all kinds of background. And they never stop. Our customers, our users never stop. They keep looking into new things, from AI, tiny machine learning to blockchain to all kinds of things. So we follow them, we work with them. So I think we stick to our essential part. We are like the NPC for the ecosystem, the non-player character. We're trying to make the best tools. We're trying to make the best passes for people to success. I think we stick to that until today, and that's we survived. And the pivot is going. Before we try to be the horizontal layer, we're trying to provide all the possibilities from open source technology to manufacturing capabilities, even to fulfillment global-wise. But we realized that we see so many failures. Because everybody trying to rebuild everything from scratch. That's the bravery of the beautiful minds. But I don't think we should keep reinventing the wheel. So from like 4 years ago, we started to rethink, how about we build the devices? How about we make sure the hardware is ready to use, but keeping it open for customization, open for collaborations, but leaving people who are better at the problem themselves can focus on the problems with their know-how with the software, but leave the hardware problems to us. So we started with agriculture. That's a breakthrough. Like Microsoft approached us on projects that need agriculture sensors. We're totally puzzled. Why would a big company needs IoT sensors? Like which should have some companies should have done that before. And we realized we are in the crossroad between the software and hardware. So how about we build the hardware better that can survive out in the field? So that's where my background is. How do we go from civilized to into the wild? Because you building a prototype is easy, but like, you want to resolve the real problem. A lot of more challenges: the reliability, the consistency. How do you survive in different temperatures? How do you survive for the rains? How do you like bear with the wild animals? So many things like that has been encumbered, not to mention tinyML, but starting from IoT. Everybody talking about IoT, but from the cloud. Whenever you go through the ground, how do you make them like survivable?
Right. Yeah.
So we basically
I think that's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we basically spent 3 years trying to fix these issues. Like how do you resolve these reliability issue? We need to upgrade our engineering team. But that's not the killer part. The killer part is the customers are different. The customer didn't realize that you don't need modules they need the devices. They didn't realize that they need machine learning. They can use them. So the market perception is really the pace we need to cater with.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great example of how successful companies evolve to really get closer to customers, get closer to applications, getting closer to the needs of a specific subset of the total community, because that community, that niche may be really underserved, but often in these embedded edge ML cases, those niches are huge. The number of devices, the number of developers, the value of what's going on when you can contribute to agriculture. Agriculture is a really big business. It seems often that it's kind of low tech, and it's partly true, but the impact that a fundamental technology can have, like massively distributed sensors, data collection, and response to a total agricultural system, is actually huge. And how people discover those things, whether it comes from some top-down analysis of the marketplace or some bottoms-up recognition of one customer or one partner who wants something, and then you find another and another and another, is part of the fun of entrepreneurship. Sometimes you can think your way to success. Sometimes you just react your way into success. What else have you discovered as you deal with this question of how horizontal versus how domain specific you want to be, and how that interacts with the choices of your customers and partners in where to sit in this horizontal versus vertical strategy?
Yeah, so like this deal from our previous story is like in the beginning we are horizontal, then we pivoted like 4 years ago from the basis of horizontal. We start to create a vertical because we want to integrate better device for the users. But I think the good thing for us is openness. We don't need to explore all the diversities or the emerging scenarios ourselves. So we work with the ecosystem. They are like in the very scattered niche market. They're expertise in their domain. So we don't fight with them. We don't compete with our customers. We just build better tools for them to explore what's beyond the existing capabilities, to fill the coverage, to fill the gaps between your target and the solutions nowadays. But I think for us, integrating vertically, can make the life easier for a different group of people, which mean the people who are really in their industry. So they don't need to understanding everything about hardware, lower technology barrier. So that pivot has making ourselves more efficient. And now we domain ourselves into the, we very much focus on IoT into the wild.
Yeah, that's great. I want to turn to a different set of questions. You're a great model of a successful entrepreneur with a company based in China serving a global market at a time when global tech is going through this fundamental change for economic reasons, sometimes for political reasons, for a wide range of causes, even to some extent, health reasons. We've seen signs of global disengagement, of some fracturing of global supply chains, especially between China and the US, but more generally, a degree of separation opening up between supply chains in China and supply chains in some other parts of the world. How does that affect you? How do you see it playing out? What are some of the possibilities? Obviously, we don't know everything yet about whether this is a temporary aberration or a decades-long shift. But what's your view of what's going on in supply chains, and how does it affect you as an advocate for this broad community, and how does it affect you as an entrepreneur?
So to us, it feels like Ice Age. It's like very, very sad moment, because we have been very closely working with our global partners and the users. Now we have to like reinvent the wheels. Like everybody's looking at a smaller market, and they have to redo the same thing over again. So these competitions in the short term, I think it's I cannot see too many like optimistic points out of that, but we have to survive on that. So like I would like take another metaphor is whenever the Ice Age comes, the dinosaurs might like diminish, but the mammals, whoever like has more diversity of food incomes will survive in maybe in a cave in a very niche markets. So I think that's where the hopes are, that the true entrepreneurs, the true innovators won't stop just because of the Ice Age. They will keep on doing that with a much bigger room. And I think the only biggest thing I can think of these days is that it might be easier to get more talents because they have been liberated from the one piece multiply trend, but it goes up to a lot of scattered chaosness. So people have the room to explore the more possibilities, and they have to give up something. Now they like it's like who moved the cheese? There was more cheese out there. So I think staying positive and keep on moving. And I think another good thing unites people, no matter of the politics, no matter of the treating barrier, is that we believe the advancement of technology, and we believe the common goods for the problems, that we can always share the know-how, we can always share the code. You don't like GitHub can ban Russia, but you can always have a way to exchange the ideas. I think beautiful minds will be agree to each other. And that I think we should find much better frontier than the conflicts.
Right. Yes. Now, what has been the specific effect of the pandemic and all of the shutdowns and restriction in travel and people working from home in your company and in your community? in China? I'm really interested to get that view.
It's a life changer. Like for us, we used to be very international. Like 1/3 of my time is not in China. But now, like the pandemic itself has like within China, it's quite okay most of the time, unless some surges in Shenzhen or recently in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And the drawback is that we cannot travel. Like we missed the tinyML summit, for example.
Yeah.
But also it has been accelerating quite some of the technology advancement. Like for machine learnings, it's very easy to use like face recognition combined with the temperature readings to check if the person is has a positive test result or not.
Yeah,
and also there are like more tools. People keep looking at the constraints and thinking of new ways to adapt. Like we see a lot of CO2 sensors demands from Europe because of the COVID. Like people see where the CO2 is increasing, there might be higher potential that that area has the COVID possibilities. So people, and also because people cannot travel that easily, more remote working ways, more like people realize the importance of AI on the edge and IoT. They can play more roles whenever you cannot just go there. And also it raises consciousness about the carbon neutrality. So how can we use less energy? Like with these constraints, people start to innovate with meaningful results.
Yeah, I think I've seen some really interesting trends as people have figured out how to work remotely, often very, very effectively. In some ways, it has knocked down some barriers because people are really good at working with people they cannot see face to face. And so it has swept away many of the distinctions of difference, both within organizations, eliminating the distinction between, are you in the main office versus are you a distant worker, but also between companies where you can get all kinds of transactions done at a distance. And for me, the most dramatic example of it was this whole acquisition of Babel Labs remotely, where we had multiple big bidders and we were making really substantial financial decisions and decisions about the future of our team. And I never met face to face anybody at Cisco or anybody at the other company that was so interested, and yet we did a really good transaction. Hundreds of millions of dollars conducted entirely over video conferencing. That was remarkable to me. The pandemic arrived at good decisions that way.
Yeah, so pandemic has been making the connection easier then.
Yeah, in a certain way, it's at least
forced
us to exercise those muscles of dealing with people who are 10 centimeters
less
tall.
Digital. Yeah.
It was really interesting being back at tinyML, one of my first face-to-face conferences again, when I discovered that people are not 10 centimeters tall, but they're really 2 meters tall. And seeing just what this old world looked like through these new eyes that have developed so much in the last 2 years in doing business in this new way. So I'm also really interested in what you've done, not just in building a business, but in building a community and getting involved in the education aspects of the maker community and spreading these ideas about embedded software and embedded hardware and machine learning to a wider community. Can you talk a little bit about your outreach efforts and what you've done in education?
I think more than outreaching, it's more like our root. So seed started with the community. We don't start a seed, then we're looking out for the community. Like even from day one, we don't know what to do. We talk to the community, we understand their pains, gains, and we find a place we can contribute. I think that's the core of our business. And I think the way of the community is very much like the developers network. You know, sometimes it's very much like combined with academia efforts because people like to change ideas. People need to make the projects from their university times. Then they move on. They build stuff for Cisco. They build stuff for Siemens. Then they start. Oh, they look back. Can I just use some open source tools which will make my life much easier? So it's a community is formed because they need help from each other, and we see too many goodwills inside the community that has been made us strong as today. So we choose to contribute back. We give back the knowledge, the know-hows. We benefit from from open source, from maker community. We contribute back. So we organize local meetups. We used to be very known in Shenzhen, so we made a makerspace. So the maker, in the beginning, the local makers joined us. They finally have a place outside of a coffee shop to talk and have a place to store their tools and to play their robots, 3D printers together. Then it becomes the base cap. The makers, the startups come to Shenzhen, want to make a hardware, use the makerspace as a place to start. Finding people, talk to get introduced to resources and move onwards. So I think the community is is always there. We just be part of it, and we try to contribute back, trying to find the problems we need to resolve and give it a price tag. So we are the NPC. So where the road is ready and then more people coming by and want to reach the far end, that's where it comes into play. I think that's more so coming to tinyML. That's what we are talking today is it's not only software or hardware, it combines a lot of know-how that has to be trained into a data set or model. So it's even more diverse, the group of people now talking to each other, trying to understand each other's background and the pains. So I think it's very similar things. And
so what's the next? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, what's the next big thing? Either what you see happening in the So what about in this kind of maker community? What aspects of ML are the easiest for people to absorb and adapt and leverage, and what are the most difficult?
I think the most interesting part is the timing. If tinyML is like published or popular in 2010, people are too busy. People are busy with light up our LED with Arduino, or like control a pump with a Raspberry Pi. But now, if you check Hexter or other project sharing spaces, people has done all the possibilities over and over again. You don't see too many new things coming out. Then tinyML is there. People realize that it's a new domain. It's totally a new access to recreate anything they have in mind, to resolve the old problem with a totally new way. I think that's the best part. But the programming is also there. People are still thinking tinyML is too far. Like people are still thinking AI is for experts. They don't realize they now have all the capabilities and with much lower cost to do that. Like a $5 controller, you can already do machine learning on it. So we need to inspire more people, educate them about the possibilities, and also lead all them to the productivity. So I don't think we should wait for some like one single company to resolve all the problems as a consultancy. We should, okay, the tool is on your hand. The maker movement is all out there. There's so many maker spaces. You know how to show off, to inspire people, but how to resolve problems. So that's where tinyML come into play. But I think we need to get like the fire started, get more people inspired.
As you get more involved with people doing ML at the edge, you could say, I suspect, the problem is not the hardware. The problem is not the software. The problem is the data and how to get the data and use the data and label the data and train with the data and test with the data. How are people in this community responding to the data challenge associated with ML systems?
I think data is just a mean. They have the scenario, they have the context. So they have the data to train it, but what they need, I think, is more of the capabilities of automation, or to compress the information through AI to get the key message out of that. So we see from the ecosystem, people already have the scenario. They might be the experts in their domain. They started with open source, like Arduino or Raspberry Pi. Okay, they feel they can do something. Now they have AI. You don't even need to code too much. You just train it. It's like you talk to R2D2. You don't program R2D2. You just go R2D2, like open the door for me. And it learns. I think tinyML is really bridge the gap.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, because that's really saying that the experts in these vertical domains do understand the data better than they necessarily understand the IoT hardware or the ML software tools. So if you just give them access to the hardware and provide a community that knows the software, they will figure out how to leverage their data quite effectively.
Yeah. Whenever you have a good tool, you have good tool to train and inference, the data itself or even the precision itself is not that important. Yeah. So it gives a lot of freedom to non-like data scientists, but more practitioners who like just get things fixed.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to turn to some questions which have been coming in. Okay. So we have a person who asks, how do you define open source? How about the dilemma between IP ownership and open source access?
So, well, it's a question being asked for so many years. So we share the way we make these things to public so people can review the wheel themselves. It's either be a software, it's a hardware, circuit design, or even test jigs you might need. So that's the open source hardware. But how do you protect IP is it depending on which party you want to protect. Like for us, the hardware is open source. In the end, you are providing the service to people. So you gain the efficiencies so people can do that much. You can do faster than people. That's the reason people wants to exchange the value side. And also for a product or solution, it has multiple elements that are creating value. You don't need to be on the IP for everything, but there are some part, like even the bottom line is maybe you can just own the branding for it. You build, you own the trust of people. So open source, yeah, I don't think we have enough time to explain in more details, but I hope that I can give it a start.
Okay, great, thank you. Nathan asks this question: can you recommend a set of prerequisites to prepare a new user to begin effectively using Seed Studio and the tinyML ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. So whenever I did the first tinyML dev kits based on Wild Terminal, I invited our HR and the finance team to become the user, and they can handle it. So the prerequisite basically is you have a computer and you can read and write. And but if for more complex things, it's better if you know some of the programming, the basic, the fundamental things. But I think beyond that, it's much easier than training a full AI system. tinyML is even easier.
Okay, great. We also have this question. Community plays an important role in the evolution of Seed Studio. To you, what are the key features of a vibrant and powerful community?
I think a different community has different characteristics. So, but I will always look at two things. First is how many active posts or messages every day. Secondly, if you ask a question, are there people willing to help? If you see all the questions get answered, it's an active one.
And what did you do as Seed Studios to do that? You didn't just say, well, here is a place you can post questions and people might answer. How do you actively curate it? How do you ensure that questions are getting answered? How much of the answers come from within Seed Studio, especially in new topics as you're trying to push in new directions? So how do you encourage that?
I think the liability is not only on answering the questions. A lot of times the community will answer the questions for each other. So I think the bottom line for anyone running a community is you should share the passion with whoever is joining to inspire each other and move on. Hey, this is an exciting thing. It's exciting technology, or this is a very challenging problems. Do anyone interested in doing that together or help me to resolve that? I think it's kind of leadership. It's kind of it's a root of open source spirits. And then on top of that, we organize contests, projects, like we have the Take for Good campaign. Is to encourage people not only focusing on technology parameters itself, but using technology to look at real problems. So we in child and like SDG problems. Hey, can we use tinyML for wildlife protection? Can we use tinyML to diagnose if some like like a geographic hazard is happening? So we list the problems and invite the engineers and community to resolve them together. I think by doing that, people have a meaning, not just to learn, but also to practice, to contribute. So we don't have a guideline for that. It's more like we learn from the community and we grow with it.
So how do you measure how big is your community? What measures do you use, and how many people are involved in the Seed Studios world?
It's getting more and more difficult to measure, because in the beginning, people stay on the forum, on our forum, on like some popular forum, but now people are scattered. They're everywhere. They might be talking about CNC and using our product. They might be in like a wildlife protection and they talk about products. So we now switching to Discord. You can go to here, and this is a Discord channel, and also for internally we measure how many direct customer and indirect customers are using our products.
Okay, good. So one last question for you.
Okay.
Tell us about one really fun, cool application you've seen. Something that you thought was really novel, interesting, advanced, or just really super useful that you've seen come out of this community.
We have been talking too many times of that. I like to, I don't want to talk about merging the artificial nodes. I want to talk about something we're about to resolve. There are at least a two group of people asking me about the wild elephants. So, some areas is in Southeast Asia or some part of China, the wild elephants might attack the villages.
Yeah.
Because their like forest has been damaged, they have no food or get frightened and whatever. So whenever they go to a village, they might hurt some villagers. So the NGO asking for a solution. Can we understand if there's an elephant approaching?
Mm-hmm.
So I get asked about 3-4 years ago. I don't have the answer for it. Either it's too complex or it's too expensive. But now we are making a device with the NGO use vibration on the end. So whenever the elephant approaching, a special pattern can be recognized by sound and vibration. So we can use that to give alerts whenever it's several kilometers away.
Oh wow, that's great.
But that can be applied into many like new domains. We feel like we get acquired a new magic, and our users, the community, can use that magic for endless new things. That's the exciting part.
Yeah, that is. So thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for your insights into how this community has evolved. I've seen some comments on your backdrop, your background picture, and I think you've really kind of explained this interesting pivot in favor of the 99% of the planet's surface. It's not just tinyML, it's ML for the wild, ML in the wild. That is a really important theme. So thank you so much. It's been great to have you on this last hour. I'll turn it back over to Evgeny.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Chris. It's been really a great conversation. I truly enjoyed it. So I have my favorite question before we conclude. A question to Eric, the question is: this is a tinyML success stories. So, what is success to you, Eric? How do you define success to yourself? Obviously, you're a very successful entrepreneur. You've been doing this business for more than a decade, reinventing the company and kind of driving new directions, new product. What does it mean for you to be successful?
I think the biggest success so far is we have been survived for many years and we're still doing something we like. I think that's a success so far. But looking on the horizon I hope that we can help more people to really get their technology to resolve problems. But there's no KPI measurement.
Yeah, right. No KPI for that. That's right.
No KPI for that.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Chris, there is one more interesting question from Joel. He's asking, I love how Seed's DNA has been about supporting maker by reducing the barrier to build a new technology. What do you see are today's biggest usability barriers for new people building their ideas with tinyML, and what needs to be done to improve them?
So we have our focus. So what we are trying to make it easier is the device itself should be survivable in the real scene. So you don't want to use a breadboard and machine learning to train and deploy it. So we are making more integrated devices that you don't need to worry about the hardware or reliabilities. You just train and deploy. I think that's the part we want to simplify. And even for novice, a beginner can do that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you, Eric. And thank you again for this great conversation. I'm sure many people found it interesting, and people like the DNA of Seed Studio, and you're very approachable and kind of easy to support this community. Thank you again. And at the end, I will acknowledge our sponsors again. It's the list is here, and the executive partners are ARM, Edge Impulse, Qualcomm, Sentient. Platinum partners are DeepLight, Clickertech, Reality AI, Renaissance, and the gold partners are PhotoHub, Maxim Integrated, Latent AI, Micro AI, NXP, and Seed Studio, where our today's guest is, and SenseML, ST Microelectronics, SynSense, and those are the silver strategic partners. Thank you again, and we will see you in a month at the May edition of the Trailblazer series. And thank you, and have a good day or night. And thank you, Eric, for joining us late. I think it's at midnight your time now. Thank you.